God, Daemon Targaryen is just so cool, isn't he? The guy charged through an enemy camp by himself and killed their leader, rides one of the fiercest dragons alive, orders the assassination of royal princes. Well, maybe that last one isn't the coolest, but the point is Daemon is a badass warrior dragon that thrives on the field more than he does in a keep. He probably thinks his best days were the ones he spent warring in the Stepstones, but now he has the chance to do that all over again, albeit on a much larger scale. With civil war breaking out in Westeros, this is Daemon's chance to prove, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that he's the true inheritor of the Targaryens' Valyrian legacy. But will he be able to do it? Where did he fly off to at the end of the second episode of Season 2? And how will his actions change the course of the war to come? We'll answer all that and more in this video, so saddle up and watch out for spoilers, because there's going to be a few of those sprinkled in throughout this bad boy. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Grasp at your stolen inheritance.
The Rogue Prince's Rage. Daemon's frustration as Prince Consort. Ever since he was introduced, Daemon has seen himself as the only Targaryen fit to rule, as opposed to his brother, the malleable King Viserys. He was a leader of men as the commander of the Gold Cloaks, and he knew how to inspire devotion as well as fear. Daemon never outright plotted against his brother because he recognized the king's authority at the end of the day, but none can say he didn't try working with Viserys. He might have thought of himself as the stronger of the two, but Daemon served his brother faithfully. First as Master of Laws, then as Master of Coin, and then as the City Watch's commander. Each time, it was Otto Hightower who got in between the brothers, and when Viserys' firstborn son came into the world, any hope of Daemon inheriting the Iron Throne died. The king had not named his brother Prince of Dragonstone despite Daemon being his only living heir, because he had always been cautioned against his brother's roguish tendencies. When his son died, Viserys named Rhaenyra his heir because he knew the succession debate had been put off for too long. Daemon grew wroth with his brother and niece, but he kept his treatment of the latter sweet enough because he knew Rhaenyra could become the key to his lost inheritance. Since episode 1 of House of the Dragon, Daemon has been wooing Rhaenyra because he knows that should Viserys not have a male heir of his own, he is weak enough to name his daughter heir. If that happened, Daemon hoped to marry Rhaenyra, but Viserys gave her to Laenor instead. For a while, Daemon kept himself satisfied with the idea that he was married to the rider of the largest dragon in the world, for he married Laena after Rhaenyra married Laenor. But when both of their spouses died, uncle and niece decided they were old enough to not care about king and council anymore. Daemon and Rhaenyra got married, and this, ironically enough, brings a semblance of peace to Viserys in his final days of misery. But the Game of Thrones rears its ugly head once more upon the king's passing, because with Viserys' death, the matter of succession is thrown wide open. Daemon, as Rhaenyra's husband, is the prince consort. His power and authority is all but titular, in the sense that Daemon is just a paper ruler. In Fire and Blood, he took the title of Protector of the Realm so he could have a degree of autonomy from Rhaenyra, even as he placed the crown upon her brow. In the show, he gives her that title, but starts working on their war plans as if he owns it, which is the source of the Black Council's biggest internal strife. Daemon will say and do things that his queen and rightful ruler would never commission, and then Rhaenyra would have to step in and assert herself, as she has done most of her life. For Rhaenyra, it's always been an uphill battle trying to win Daemon's affections, but for the Rogue Prince, no matter what he does, he always ends up in a political position that makes him feel impotent. As Prince of the City, he had run of King's Landing. As the husband of the future queen, lords and ladies should be heeding his words with equal authority in his mind. And yet, the truth is that everyone knows Rhaenyra is queen and that her word is final. You can see it in every council meeting she attends. The moment she walks in, her word becomes law. The idea of being a prince consort must not sit well with Daemon, as it doesn't with many real-life male consorts in Britain. Mary, Queen of Scots, had 3 husbands, all of whom vied for power with her on the basis of the technicality of being kings. Mary I of England, on the other hand, named her husband Philip co-monarch, and for the duration of their marriage, all royal documents were created and signed with both their authorities. The title prince itself holds heavy political significance because in patriarchal societies, the word king sits above queen. If the ruling monarch of a domain is a woman, then her partner is not elevated to the station of king, instead being kept a prince to limit his powers ceremonially and politically. This is why you see see Rhaenys emphasizing the word prince whenever she addresses Daemon, because she wants to remind him that by taking actions independent of Rhaenyra, he's overstepping. Prince consorts are bound to obey the will of their queens, just like anyone else, and episode 2 was all about Daemon rejecting that idea. He starts off episode 1 trying to boss around Rhaenys by asking him to fly with him to kill Vhagar and Aemond. When she shuts him down, he uses his influence with the Kingsguard to have Mysaria delivered to him and then plots an assassination, all without Rhaenyra's knowledge. When his plots bear fruit, instead of taking responsibility for them, Daemon deflects the blame on blood and cheese. And this is what leads the Black Queen to say that they've come to it at last. Rhaenyra calls out Daemon for trying to organize her defenses and plan out her war without her. In the season 1 finale, he did it by going to meet Otto's delegation while pushing Rhaenyra to the wayside. In season 2, he's done so by sending blood and cheese. Daemon is right in saying that war is coming and they should be quick, but he doesn't know how to play the political game without being volatile. In the end, he tells Rhaenyra what he really thinks of her, and this is where his real anger is revealed. Daemon still thinks of the Iron Throne as being his brother's, not his wife's. He thinks Rhaenyra is as weak as Viserys was, and that the latter was jealous of him for her martial abilities. He doesn't strike Rhaenyra, though he's capable of doing it, likely because he knows she's his queen. But he never says it, and after she makes it clear to him that she doesn't trust him, he takes his leave to go fight the war how he knows best. At the end of the day, all Daemon wants is the glory of his house to live forever, but he lacks the temperament to become a king, and he's proven that many times. So if he can't be that, he'll go do what he does best, and that's bashing people's skulls in.
I've begun.
Where did Daemon fly to with Caraxes? Will he support or betray Rhaenyra? Anyone who's been paying an inkling of attention to the trailers and the general direction that both sides seem to be taking will know that the only logical destination for Daemon is Harrenhal. Even as he was arguing with Rhaenyra in episode 2, he was talking about how he was headed to Black Heron's Folly to raise an army in her name. And now that he has seen she doesn't trust his words, he'll have to prove himself with his actions. The preview for episode 3 shows Daemon landing Caraxes atop a giant tower as it rains. That tower can only be the Kingspire Tower, where his ancestor Aegon the Conqueror ended the line of Harren horror. In the books, it's said that Caraxes' arrival unnerves the garrison of Harrenhal so much that they yield the castle to Daemon without a fight. It looks like things are going to be a little different in the show, as Daemon seems to be going on a one-man castle invasion. Even if he lands Caraxes atop the Kingspire Tower, he still has to deal with the entire castle guard, and Harrenhal is the seat of House Strong. Though they were never known to be an especially large house with a massive household, Harrenhal's adjoining lands are extremely fertile, and whoever holds the castle grows immensely rich. Right now, the castle is being held by Larys' castellan, Sir Simon Strong, who will be played by Simon Russell Beale with a garrison of unknown strength. A conservative estimate puts the numbers anywhere between 50 to 100 men just to man the massive walls of Harrenhal, and that number is going to be tricky for Daemon to deal with one-on-one. It's likely that he will land Caraxes and make his way down to Simon's chambers, incapacitating any guards he comes across along the way. Once he has Harrenhal's authorities in hand, the rest of the castle should fall without opposition, and we already know what his intentions are beyond Harrenhal's capture. In the Weeks Ahead trailer, we see Daemon supping with Simon Strong and his grandsons, and he says that perhaps the presence of a dragon was going to sharpen minds around these parts. This scene is clearly taking place after he's subdued Harrenhal, but the question now becomes, what's next? The Blacks will make the first military move thanks to Daemon in the war, but what happens when he's reunited with Rhaenyra? The Rogue Prince is going to be spending a lot of time in the Riverlands, consolidating power for his side of the Civil War, because at the end of the day, Daemon knows that's his only path to power. If he wants to be seen as a leader of men, he has to lead some men, and that will happen when the Blackwoods and the Brackens go to war again. At this point in time, the Riverlands have not declared for either side because their liege lords are having an internal strife of their own. The official lord of Riverrun, Grover, is a Green supporter, but his grandson Elmo, who runs the Riverlands in his name, supports the Blacks. Without their overlords making their intentions known, the Riverlords have decided to withhold their claims, all but House Strong, for reasons that should be obvious. The Blackwoods and the Brackens will use the context of the looming civil war to try and settle their own ancient disputes, and this will present Daemon with the opportunity to prove himself the leader of men that he claims he is. It's likely that his arrival at Harrenhal is what will spur the Greens into action, because that's how things play out in Fire and Blood, and once that happens, the question then becomes, what will Daemon do with war coming right at him? Many of you might think that he's going to be involved with the sowing of the dragon seeds, or even the Battle of the Gullet, but those two things will happen independent of his involvement. If they were up to Daemon, he'd have moved his own men into positions of power and taken over the entire Black effort under the pretext of the sowing. The Battle of the Gullet would have been much less of a train wreck, and the greens would be extinguished before the turn of the moon, as he claimed in the finale of Season 1. Since that's not the case, Daemon has two options when it comes to the approach he can take in life. He can either betray Rhaenyra and position himself as the leader of the Black's armies, a move that would give him more military power than her because the Queen doesn't participate in any major battles of the dance, at least according to Fire and Blood. House of the Dragon could change that detail, but we think they won't. If Daemon brings thousands of rivermen to King's Landing under his authority, they would listen to him more than they would Rhaenyra, and that could restart their internal feud, but on a whole other level. Conversely, Daemon could just shut up and fight Rhaenyra's battles and prove to her that he doesn't want her crown. He just wants his own to go along with it. At the end of the day, Daemon's experience as a war general is something Rhaenyra can never hope to match. The prudent course for the Blacks would be make like Mary and Philip and execute all royal decisions through a united front. But alas, that would take away the very conflict that drives Daemon and Rhaenyra's dynamic. Daemon thinks that Rhaenyra is her father's daughter, and in many ways, he's right. Rhaenyra thinks that Daemon is still her father's grasping brother, and in many ways she isn't wrong. The taking of Harrenhal will quell the tensions between them for a while, but not more than that. Targaryens are known for their fiery tempers, and when Daemon and Rhaenyra take over, they won't deal in mercy and pardons. Rather, they'll deal in fire and blood. And that, my friends, is what we should really be watching out for. Marvelous verdict. But as for this video, I'm afraid that's all we've got for you. The Rogue Prince's rage and ambition have always been defining aspects of his personality, but he isn't so devoid of morals that he would commit treason. Daemon is extremely pissed at Rhaenyra for bringing up Viserys during their conversation, and you can see he wants to strangle her for her words. But he doesn't do it, because she's his queen, and Daemon knows where his duties lie at the end of the day. Even with Viserys, he never plotted treason because all he wanted was recognition from his brother that he was worthy of ruling beside him. Daemon's assault on Harrenhal is going to be one of the most epic sequences in all of Season 2, and we personally can't wait to see it. But what about you guys? Let us know in the comments down below what you're excited to see from Daemon, and we'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay indoors lest ye become dragon feed. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, stay safe out there, and thanks for watching.